Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. We are at the BRC offices, and it's a welcome to all of you for joining us. It's a very important webinar that we're going to be unpacking a lot of interesting things. My name is Aki Anastasiou, and it's an honor for me to be here and really facilitating this discussion. And really, it's all about television and how television has evolved, how our viewing has evolved, and the way South Africans particularly are viewing television and consuming television is really changing rapidly. And it's not just South Africa. I mean, this is a global trend. It's happening all over the world. And I guess what differentiates us in South Africa and Africa as a continent is that we're a mobile first continent. So we might be consuming and watching television slightly differently to other countries around the world. And I guess that this change is happening profoundly faster, and it's accelerating very, very fast. And it really has a great impact for marketers and advertisers and broadcasters alike. So people are now watching content all over the place. We see it. They're commuting, they're watching content. There's a lunch break, they're watching content. You're watching people going out for dinner, and parents are sitting having an intimate discussion, and the kids are on their phones. They're watching content. So everybody is watching content in many different ways. So what does this actually mean for television measurement? Because it's changed quite significantly. It's not the same measurement that we had a decade ago or even 2 decades ago. And this is exactly what we are going to be unpacking in today's webinar. And it's really about something else. It's about moving out of comfort zones. It's about stepping out into a braver world, looking at things differently, literally taking what we know, turning it upside down and looking at it from a whole new lens, and really defining what viewing is all about and how one goes about investing in this research, because it all takes quite a few resources and quite a bit of money to do this, but it really helps us understand what's happening rather than assuming what we think we already know. So really, it's giving us a lot more accurate insights, and I've got a fantastic panel to unpack all of this with us today. Gary Whittaker is no stranger to all of you watching this. He's the CEO of the Broadcast Research Council of South Africa. Welcome to you, Gary. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Aki. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. And I'm still trying to figure out how this man does it. He has his first meal at 6 p.m. in the evening. This intermittent fasting, which I'm trying to get into, I'm learning a lot of new things, but I'm going to learn a lot of new things about television viewing today. Sitting next to Gary is Serena Howie, who's the Director for Global Products at Ask Africa, who's been really instrumental in a lot of this research. Nice to see you, Serena.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And joining us all the way from the Netherlands is Karin Schutte, who is the media research expert and project lead on the BRC Establishment Survey. You know, this is not your first trip to Johannesburg. You've been here a few times. Welcome. Nice to have you with us. Are you enjoying the warmer weather that we have to offer?
Great. Out from the cold
Exactly.
into the warmth. Yeah.
And we know how cold it gets in the Netherlands. But I'm looking forward to your slides. They look absolutely fascinating. We're going to be touching on those a little bit later on. Peter Rousseau is sitting right at the end there, and he's the senior researcher at Ask Africa. And you've got some fascinating insights that you're going to be sharing with us. So welcome to you.
Thank you. Great pleasure to be here.
Listen, great to have you with us. And by the way, this is an interactive session. We want you as the audience to engage. If you have any questions, if you have something that pops up that says, hey, that doesn't sound right, or I'd like to ask more about this, we will answer all of your questions as well, by the way. So you can put your questions in the chat box, or you can even email us, and you can send your email questions and comments to office@brcsa.org.za. That email should be on your screen as well, but I'll repeat it a little bit later on. And Gary will make sure that all the questions you have will get answered. So let's get started. And I'm going to welcome Serena first. Serena's going to answer some of the questions that I've got. And I mean, from an Ask Africa perspective, this is fascinating research that you guys have been working on as a research partner, working very, very closely with the advertisers, many of which are joining us on the line, and the broadcasters. Now, in a world of social media, and we know how many changes have happened, and we know that there's people viewing content on all sorts of different platforms, they're streaming, they're doing this, they're doing that. How important is television still in South Africa and in the context of all of these other platforms that are out there?
I think, as to your point, change is very, very real in South Africa, but television seemed to have been one of those mediums that's been very successfully able to stay. How people watch television might be very different, but it's still very much one of the leading behaviors amongst consumers. And that really applies across generations, income groups, literally just across all South Africans. And I think very much television is still a window into the world for many South African citizens.
Yeah, this is so true. And isn't it incredible, guys, that a few years ago, with all these streaming platforms that were coming out, people wrote off television, right? I mean, people said this is the end of TV as we know it, but yet that television is still today as relevant as it's ever been. But the way people watch TV has changed a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very much screen-based, if I can call it that. It's no longer only linked to a particular set. So I might be starting watching something on television, and then I start cooking and I convert to a different screen. I maybe continue watching that on my mobile phone. So it's very interrelated or interconnected, I suppose, from a screen point of view. But what makes it more complex, apart from the fact that there's also so much choice available to consumers now, I think is the layer that really pertains to what does viewing actually really mean. So does it mean that the moment I start streaming, that's when I really start consuming? So what does viewership actually mean? And I think those are some of the fundamental questions that we had to ask ourselves in this project, or at the onset of this project and research study, to really say, what does viewership really mean in today's?
So, Serena, it's very clear that television really matters today. But the question is, with all of these changes, and you mentioned the streaming, et cetera, how are advertisers and broadcasters responding to these changes?
I think I want to salute the BRC and the media owners and even the advertisers to some extent, because I think often when we recognize change and we understand all that there's a lot of change happening at a rapid pace. But the difficult thing is often for us as researchers, as media owners, as even advertisers to say, we need to rethink what we think we know, and we need to challenge our own assumptions and really invest in research that's going to sort of, like you said up front, really put things upside down and say, what really is the big things that have changed and how did the numbers potentially change? But the better we understand what motivates and what drives consumer behavior and how they consume differently, the better decisions we are going to be able to make. And obviously, to do that from a research point of view, you really need to understand that you've got really trusted data that you can work with, so that you're more comfortable to challenge and to open up your mindset in terms of what you think you know and what's really changed.
Yeah, and I think the key here is trust, right? And really looking at it from a totally new perspective, which is fantastic. And I think that that's going to, all of this that we're going to be talking about is really providing some fantastic tools and toolkits for advertisers and marketers and broadcasters to better understand their audiences. In fact, perhaps from a research point of view, I would say that it's made things a lot more clearer than it's ever been, possibly.
Yeah, I think the deeper you dig, the better the answers are. And I think if one really wants to invest in good business decisions, you need to invest in good, proper research. But I think we're in a world at the moment where we understand the significance of data, but we also understand the significance of good data.
Yeah.
To do a survey is easy. To do a proper survey is perhaps something else.
Yeah.
But I really think we owe it to ourselves, to our businesses, to our clients, to our clients' clients, to really understand what's happening out there and what's the extent of the change that's happening.
Fantastic. Well, I want to bring you in, Gary, because I mean, this has been an incredible journey, right? Let's talk about this journey towards this total video measurement, because really this has been something that's been brewing for a long time. This change has had to happen. Talk to me about this journey that you're on at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, the world has changed. TV universe has changed. The video universe has changed. The entire landscape has changed. And an organization like the BRC needs to be at the forefront of showing what changes have occurred. No matter how hard it is to swallow those changes or accept those changes, it's up to us to provide a data set that's beyond reproach. And that involves massive rigor. It involves stakeholder engagement across the board. So the advertisers, the agencies, our broadcasters as our members. It involves challenging fundamentals. It involves challenging what we think we know. And that's a starting point. At the beginning of 2025, there were multiple processes going on at the same time. We knew that we had to run an RFP for TV measurement, which is a change from going from TAMS to TVM. So we call it total video measurement.
Okay.
And that's all encompassing, because in the past, well, I say in the past, currently, our measurement going back 38 years till now has been about measuring what's on a television set in the home, linear feed.
That's it.
That's it. And the move now is to capture everything, and particularly for the broadcasters, but to also look beyond that to some of the other platforms out there. And we'll get to that in terms of granularity of measurement. But really, the broadcasters have missed out on audiences via other platforms that they have. It's a function of the measurement. The measurement has served us well, but it's time for a change. It's time for us to incorporate the entire video universe. And as a good friend of mine always says, good fences make good neighbors. And that's where the establishment survey comes in.
Yes.
That's our good fence. And that's going to ensure that we start off on the correct footing in terms of what does the landscape look like? What does the video universe look like? So that we can set up our measurement correctly, so that we can set up our panel correctly, so that it mimics exactly what the South African TV market is all about.
Fascinating stuff. Does this now mean that you're going to be measuring TikTok and YouTube as well, and Instagram, for example?
That's a very good question. So we talk about total video, right? So it's all encompassing. However, we have to work within the bounds of what we have access to. So as the BRC, we have members. On the television side, it's the TV broadcasters, as well as we have subscribers, channels that subscribe to the data, as well as subscribe to measurement of their channels. We're able to do a lot when we have those entities on as members, because they give us the keys to the castle.
Yes.
They open up first-party data, they open up tagging options for content, advertising, logs, literally data back to the BRC. And we use that to get granular data to the market. These other platforms, entities, whatever you like to call them, such as Google, YouTube, TikTok, the list goes on, Netflix. We are limited in a sense that we can't get a granular view of specific channels, pieces of content, etc., because they're not members of the BRC, and we cannot force ourselves our way into their platforms. However, we will have a panel in place which is representative of the South African market in terms of video viewing. And at a broad level, we'll get a sense of anybody watching, I'll take YouTube, for example, watching YouTube. What time of the day are they watching it? How long are they watching for? What is their demographic makeup, etc. So although we won't get a granular view of, is this person watching America's Got Talent on YouTube?
Yes.
We won't get that, but we'll get that they're watching YouTube.
And do you get how many minutes they might be watching YouTube?
Absolutely.
You can get that as
well. Yeah, we'll have second-by-second data.
Yeah.
But again, it's at a very broad level compared to the members that we have in the BRC, such as the SABC, eMedia, and Canal Plus,
Yes.
DSTV.
Yeah.
We'll be able to get very granular data in terms of, as an example, any day of the week, on any channel, program type, the adverts that ran, verification of those adverts, etc.
So you got limited access to the data from places like TikTok and YouTube. But I mean, what about other platforms that are really significant, like Netflix, where there's perhaps a longer viewing time? Do you have access to that information or not?
Absolutely. But again, it will be at a broad level. So it'll be Netflix.
Okay.
Of course, the BRC is always open to discussions around, new members becoming part of the BRC.
Yeah.
Nothing is out of the realm. But as it stands, in terms of our current membership, it'll be at a broad view for entities that are not within our membership.
Okay. And is this a BRC only project?
No. So this is a collaborative project. Although it is funded by the BRC, collaboration is key. It will continue to be key for the BRC. So we're an independent entity, but although this is directed by the BRC board, which is made up of both radio and television broadcasters, this project is directed by them and signed off in terms of paying for a project of this magnitude. But we have a technical committee, and that's made up of members from the broadcasters who have technical expertise in research and audience measurement, We have representation from the AMF, who represent the agencies. We have representation from the software bureaus who help process our data. And we have various international and local experts who consult to the BRC and also inform on the decisions that we make in the market. We do include members from the marketing fraternity, especially MASA, in everything that we do. Like we want to include everybody on everything. We want this to be a collaboration. We want this to be going forward together. This is not a directive from the broadcasters. This is an inclusive project.
Okay, fantastic. So that is the lay of the land. This is what it looks like right now. And thank you for describing it so eloquently. It's really an interesting place that we find ourselves. It's almost like a crossroads. Something has to happen. We've painted the background. We've painted where we are. So up next, we're going to find out the roadmap. And where do we go from here? So Gary described the history so well, and it makes complete sense. Where exactly are we on this journey?
So we began this process early in 2025, where in parallel we ran an RFP which was awarded for total video measurement, which was awarded to GfK. We're currently in the setup phase of total video measurement, so getting the panel together, signing off on various KPIs, contractual agreements, etc., getting the teams in place. It's very complex, it's very detailed. And again, this is all done in conjunction with the technical committee of the BRC. In parallel with that, we began running our establishment survey. Again, the design going into field, and we'll touch on it a lot more in this session. Ask Africa carrying out the establishment survey for us, and we should reach completion of field work at the end of February this year. We have had some challenges in terms of the rains that we've had, the floodings that
Yes.
we've had in various regions. That's never good for a face-to-face interview methodology that we have for the establishment survey, but we've made great strides. The rigor that has gone into the design of the establishment survey is world-class. In my mind, it is a first of its kind. That doesn't necessarily bode well for Ask Africa, because the more rigor you have, the harder it is to get those face-to-face interviews completed, especially in a country like South Africa. Everybody knows the challenges that we have in terms of accessing certain parts of our demographic makeup in South Africa,
Yeah.
gated communities, upper income, even rural areas. It's difficult. And then you add in acts of God, that doesn't help. But we have made great strides, and we're very happy with the progress that we've made. And we're very much looking forward to the data that's going to come out that will serve as the basis for total video measurement.
Yeah. And I'd love our audience to comment on your thoughts on this change, this much needed change, I might add, in the comment section on your screens. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear your questions as well. Gary, how radically different is this to the way you were doing this in 2019?
So on many fronts, you cannot even compare. So 2019 was the last time we updated the universe and had an establishment survey. We've had to change our thinking. We've had to change, how do we address even the questionnaire for the establishment survey? Because again, like I said, we've had to challenge what we think we know. We're all very close to the data. We're all very close to the lingo that we have in the market. And I think the entire industry is.
Yeah.
But the general man on the street, you could ask two different people, next door neighbors even, what their video viewing is. And one person may think, are you talking about television? And another person may think, are you talking about TikTok, as an example?
Exactly.
So it's very important when you're asking those questions that when you ask a question, there is a general understanding of that question so that you get the right answers. And the only way that you get to that is there's a step before, and it's a qualitative step. And I'm not going to go into the detail of that because we'll cover that. But again, that's never been done before in any establishment survey that we've run on our market. We've never run a qualitative exercise to inform a questionnaire for an establishment survey. So again, that's a first for us. And I've not heard of many markets around the world doing it in the way that we've done it, which is very, very new and innovative, but not for the sake of it. everything has an intention behind it, and that intention is to get an accurate view of the market.
Well, listen, it's very exciting, and I'm looking forward to the results. You mentioned the challenges, and yeah, the flooding has been quite horrific this year, but you guys are making great progress. So where do we stand as of today?
So where we stand is we're on a road to total video measurement, with setup completing this year in terms of our panel. The universe will be informed by the establishment survey, and then we will launch TVM in January 2027.
Okay. So literally, under a year to go.
Yeah.
And that's putting a lot of pressure on you and your team.
Absolutely. And there are other projects that are underway at the moment too, which a lot of the market wouldn't necessarily have sight of. But again, all geared towards making our output more efficient and more effective. And as an example, one of the projects that we have is harmonization of data, which includes verification of data, which will lead to less re-releases of data to the market, which means the agencies have less work, the broadcasters have less work, they can trust the data the first time that it's published. And another project that we have on the go is assessing our software bureaus and their capability of ingesting the data that we have, and any other software bureaus out in the market globally that are able to produce the data that we need via the inputs from TVM. One thing that I want to mention is we're also wanting to make the output from the software bureaus uniform. We don't want to have a situation where you're calculating reach and frequency on television and getting slightly different outputs.
Yes.
Everyone should have the same output. And then that comes down to a gold standard algorithm, which the BRC will be putting forward to the software bureaus.
And accuracy is key, as you mentioned, which is very important. So understanding the population is really the key in all of this data collection, and really understanding where the population is, what the population is doing. And once you start building a panel that understands the population and what it looks like, is really a key foundation for this research. How does that all work in your world at the BRC?
So it all starts with the establishment survey and the output from the establishment survey. And again, there's been massive change. And we've already seen it in qualitative findings, and we expect to see a similar thread through the quantitative, although we don't have that data yet.
Yeah.
Now, once we have that lie of the land, that directly inputs into the panel, its design, the type of people we have on the panel, where they are in the country. The panel has to be representative of the whole of South Africa, but the video viewing universe. And you only get that from an establishment survey. And you get that from an establishment survey that has rigor, that is trusted by the market, that has data that we can rely on, that informs insights in the market for making business decisions, advertising decisions, gauging return on investment. It's critical.
This is incredibly exciting. This is, as I mentioned earlier, one of the most profound changes in measurement in our industry. How excited are you?
I'm incredibly excited about this. It's monumental. It's a massive responsibility. It's a massive responsibility for the BRC. It's a massive responsibility for all stakeholders. We are making history as we speak. And again, it's not for the sake of it. This is something that is a non-negotiable.
Yes.
It has to happen. And we do not shirk that responsibility. We will never shirk that responsibility, and we will continue to improve as the market changes. We have to change as the market changes. I don't think we'll ever have a methodology in place that'll last 38 years like we did have. I think we'll continue to grow, develop, change as the market changes.
Thank you so much, Gary. And I'm as excited as you are for what this is going to bring to the industry. And I think it's much needed at this point. But we're going to dive deeper into that in just a moment and look at the establishment survey and where it all starts and where it's going. That's coming up next. Well, Corin and Peter are going to break this next segment down for us. And welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining us. I mean, I'm as excited as you are listening to Gary talking about what this means for South Africa and for measurement in South Africa, but he explained that the establishment survey is an important cornerstone of the BRC measurement model, and it's important that it meets the highest research standards, and that means accuracy and all sorts of other things, Karen. What exactly does that mean?
Well, that means that we actually do the best we can. So we design a gold standard plan that raises the bar really high, and we follow the execution of it so very closely from the BRC point of view.
Okay, so I mean, it's there's a lot of work that's going to go into this. So how do you even begin preparing for something?
Well, before we started, we know that an organization like BRC is delivering the currency data sets. That's the basis for everything. So it's all about trust and also about transparency. So when we started to think about the design for the establishment survey, we identified 3 key success factors for that. So a gold standard methodology plan, the excellent execution of it, and the involvement of stakeholders. Because BRC is a stakeholder organization. The data is being used by all the parties in the market, so it has to cater also to all their needs. And we bring everybody on board in the technical committee, like Gary already explained a little bit about. We ask them to share their input to us, to explain exactly what they are after, what their needs are. And we make the decisions about the design of the sample and the research together with them. So they are on board, and they are also sort of, becoming ambassadors of the project. Yeah, and it's really exciting to see all their involvement.
Yeah, that last point you mentioned is it's probably for me, the most important aspect of all of this research is that stakeholder involvement. And it's fantastic that you've gone out and you've said to all the stakeholders, what do you want in here? How do you see this? What is it at the end of the day that you want to engage from this particular research? So everybody's on the same page, which is exactly what you've just said. You've got some fantastic slides that will really illustrate what this research is all about. So if you can turn your attention to the screens, we've got some slides that really give you an insight and really put it into a picture format. I love slides and pictures and graphs. That really helps me understand what this is all about.
Yeah, so I'll explain a little bit more. And actually the slides, they also give sort of what's actually happening with this research. So it guides us through all of these steps that we take. So what does the gold standard research design look like for this market? Then we're talking about a nationwide sample of 15,000, more than 50,000 interviews with respondents all over the country. We do this face to face, so we don't send out emails with questionnaires, but we ask people, interviewers, to go to people's homes and ask for their time and attention and their help with answering the questions that we ask them.
So let me ask you, I mean, all those little yellow dots, that's where all the research is going to be conducted. 15,000 interviews, more than 15,000, all over the age of 15, those people. Why the need to do this face to face? In 2026, when we are living in this digital era, can you not send you some research that you can do?
Well, you can try, but a lot of people won't respond to it. And we would never be sure if the sample is representative for South Africa as a whole. And that's what we're after. We definitely need a random sampling methodology to make sure that everybody is represented in this study. So that's why we need to go face to face. So we make a lay of the land, so to speak. So we map where everybody is living, and then we divide the country in very small areas. We call it the enumeration areas. So that's areas where I think on average 150 and 200 people are living. And all these little areas, these are all official. It's all in the official stats as well. We know some of their characteristics from the census data. So we know the dominant population group. We know if it's an urban, metropolitan, or a rural area, things like that. Of course, we know where they are. So what we do first with this study is that we pick a sample We collect a sample of EAs, so to speak, that's widespread across the countries.
What are
At least-
EAs?
Yeah, enumeration areas. Thank you.
Okay. It's a
Very
big word
difficult
for
word for me.
enumeration areas. There's no
Enumeration.
prizes if you get this right.
First time, right? Yeah. So with this 15,000 face-to-face interviews, we decided up front to use only 3 interviews per EA. I'll use EA from
Okay,
now on.
yes.
Which leads us to 5,000 EAs available for this study. And that's actually a large number, because usually in studies in South Africa, it's quite common to go for 6 or 8 interviews per EA.
Yes.
And then you would end up with only 2,500 EAs.
And I
part
was
of the
reading
selection.
about the research, which I found interesting, is that these aren't like 15-minute discussions.
No, they're
This
quite
is
long.
like 40 minutes long.
Yeah, they're quite long. Yeah. So we really have to work hard for our data in the end, and
Yes.
also all the respondents and the interviewers, of course. So what we did, I use this slide to demonstrate what it actually means that we have 5,000 EAs for this study available instead of the more common 2,500
Okay.
that's usually being used for a sample like this. And here you can see actually then you would cover a lot less land. So we have a very wide selection of the country part of the study. And for statisticians, this is really helpful because we also cover more variation. So our data is a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's adding to the sample. So when we established which EAs are part of the selection for the sample, then we send in our interviewers. They go into these EAs with GPS coordinates. I'll come back to that later. So they know where they have to go to find someone to ask questions. These interviewers are trained up front, so they go in as experts. So they are aware, they can actually identify if a respondent feels uncertain about certain questions or is answering with incomplete answers or makes mistakes. Is talking about an antenna instead of the dish that's on top of the house, for instance. So the interviewer is trained to catch up on those kind of signals, and also can help the respondent with explanations. And we built a whole booklet for the interviewers as well, with show cards that can be used for the interview. So we are sure that the answers are understood and that the questions are understood and we get accurate answers.
This is so impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Such a large sample size and so much data that you're collecting. I think this is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, so rigor across the whole process of the interview. So the next step is then, after we train the interviewers, they go in to an EA or a small area with GPS points. They enter when they are close to this specific point, and they have to go to a home that is at that exact point. Then they are carrying devices. And the questionnaire is on that device, but can only be used when they are close enough to that specific home that we selected for our sample.
And those people don't know you're coming.
No, these people don't know that the interviewers are going to knock on their doors. So they have to go in, they knock on the door, someone opens it, hopefully. And then the interviewer asks about the household composition to find out who lives there. And then from that list of household members, we again randomly pick the household member that we want that we want the questionnaire. We want to ask our questions to. So
do the questions go as deep as to finding out how many televisions are in the house? Yeah. What the internet speed is and how many mobile devices? Because exactly. I imagine that all of this data can be used to discover a lot of other things. It's really valuable data.
Yeah, it's a really rich data set. And these are exactly the questions that we ask in the questionnaire. But these are quite technical questions.
Yes.
And so these are difficult questions to answer. Maybe not from experts in the audience, but for people living in rural areas or at anyone who's not that involved in the
Yes.
industry. This is difficult stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. So they geofence the area and there's timestamps. They get into the area and then they go to those homes and then they ask the questions.
Yeah, and the timestamps are also important because we use them to check the data. So we actually go in with them, with their information, so with the timestamps and the GPS points, so we can track the routes of the interviewers. So we can actually see, well, did they do what we asked them to do? So are they following our instructions? So that's the rigor of the quality control that we need, for this study.
Fantastic.
And then the next part is that when the actual interview takes place, we ask people if it's okay. Of course, they have to consent to it. If we take pictures, so we take pictures, the interviewer takes pictures of the satellite dish and from where the signal comes from. So we use it also to check if this information was accurately collected. So if it's correct afterwards. And we also take pictures from television sets to check whether the subscription is what people say that they are watching, and etc. etc. So that's quite interesting, actually. It's also used for quality control.
How many of those TVs are smart TVs as well?
Yeah, we ask them and we see that, and that's where these pictures also come in. So we can check if it's correct. We use it for quality control.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And then we make recordings of the interview. And the interviewer is, of course, aware of that, and the respondent as well. But the interviewer doesn't know which questions we record. And we do this also to do some extra checks on difficult stuff. Just to hear and listen to the recordings really helps us to see, well, did the respondent understand the question? And did the interviewer understand the answer that the respondents were given? And is it correct? Is it correctly put in the data? So that's also used for quality control.
Wow, this is very rich data that you're collecting.
It is very rich data, and it's very high quality data, I would like to say.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've never seen a market where the rigor is this. With a rigor like this.
No, I'd actually love the audience watching this webinar just to comment on what you think of the data collection. I mean, it's insane when you look at the amount of people, how deeply they're going into these areas and the kinds of questions that they're asking. And 40 minutes is a long time in asking quite a few questions. Well, what do these graphs tell us?
Yeah, this is the dashboard that we use in our weekly meetings with the project team from Ask Africa, and that we follow very closely how the project is progressing.
Yes.
So how it goes, and so with graphs that are updated with number of interviews taken place, etc., and other measures that we agreed upon, but also with incidents reports, and that's where the icons come from at the right of the slide, where it's getting difficult in the field when the teams are working there and floods are starting, heavy rains, everything.
Yeah. So all of this is interesting, and the planning is one thing, but executing this is another thing altogether. And this is where the team from Ask Africa comes in.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a pretty good job, because when we started, one of the first things that we said to them is, well, actually, we ask you to do the best, to deliver the best work that you've ever done before, and they actually got excited. And we also talked up front about, well, we really want the study to be successful, and for that, it's going to be difficult. It is going to be difficult. There are things going to happen there are challenges on the way, and we have to overcome them together. So and we're really keen on them being so transparent on everything that's going on. Yeah.
Well, let me bring Serena back into the conversation. I mean, this is incredible research that you guys are doing. And Gary mentioned earlier the impact of the floods and things that are beyond our control. How is it all going, and where do we stand today?
I always say research keeps you humble. Just when you think you've got everything figured out, something else happens that you need to work with. You can't do that if you don't have a good partnership, and you can't do that if you don't have a baseline of trust and transparency. And I think for us, the key success was, as the more openly we can discuss everything that we are experiencing, the more we can make the right plans and come up with the right solutions that will really serve the data set. And I think we are an integrated team that stretches right down to our interviewers that's extremely committed to making this product a success.
Yeah. And I think that you mentioned it earlier. I'm not sure who mentioned it about stakeholders being involved in this entire process.
Yeah.
It's critical in this.
Yeah, it is, because in the end, the project is only successful if the data is accepted, and that's where the stakeholder accepted by the stakeholders as well. So it's very important to keep them committed to the project.
Yeah.
And that's very important that they are involved in every decision that we make. So from the research design perspective, and we share a lot of material, footage, pictures with them about the actual field work going on. So they also see what's happening there, and they understand how difficult it sometimes is to do proper research in a country like this as well.
Because you've got 250 people out there in the field, and they're probably doing, I don't know, 2-3 of these interviews a day. You got to get 15,000 of these. Do you have an estimated time as to when you're going to conclude all of this research?
If all goes well, our plan is to have it done by the end of February.
Okay.
We really have done quite a lot. So it's the last stretch that we need to get over and to get done. But yeah, things like floods and rains doesn't really always help. And it's not always while it's raining, but the devastation that's left after big floods that really makes it quite hard. And I think in a country like South Africa, crime and safety and fear is actually quite a big thing.
Yeah. But it must be like opening Christmas presents when the data's all in, when you start analyzing it to see what's been happening. I can't wait for the results to come out. So we're gonna find out about the qualitative study, the whys and the hows behind the scenes, because this is a very important part of the process. That's up next. So now, Corin, you didn't just go into this without any knowledge of what you're doing, because before you launched this establishment survey, you also conducted the qualitative survey. Now, why was that necessary?
Yeah, there's also always two parts to research like this. There's, of course, the sample design and the research design, but then it's also, I think one of the main component maybe is also questionnaire design.
Yes.
So knowing what you want to get out of it. So it's the objective of the study, translate it into questions that actually are understood by the people that you ask them.
Yeah.
So that's where the qual study comes in. So we learned a lot about the words people use, the commitment that they have with television viewing and everything that's really helpful for building a questionnaire.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if they ask the most important question in a questionnaire in a household with the television: who has control of the remote control? All right. Peter, let me bring you into this conversation. So talk to us about the methodology and how you guys go about doing all of this.
So what we did is we had 18 household interviews. So we sent an interviewer with a team to a particular household to actually have a conversation. And this conversation takes up to 2 hours, where we sit with the family, we talk to them about their media viewing habits, what they watch, what devices they use, because it's essential for measurement rigor that we understand exactly what words people use when they speak about television viewing. Because we have our ideas, but at the end of the day, the establishment survey has to accurately reflect the lived experiences of the people who consume TV.
Was there anything that stood out for you for those 18 households that you did?
Absolutely. I think it is wonderful to appreciate the cultural, economic, and linguistic diversity that South Africa actually has to bear on viewing behavior. So it was wonderful to see that people are very different, and that a good measurement of viewing behavior needs to accommodate all of these nuanced differences to make sure that, we accurately measure what we intend.
So, Peter, I mean, those are interesting learnings, and every household is completely different. And I guess that television means different things to different people. Let me ask you, for example, what does television mean to you?
Television simply means it's a way of achieving a few things. It's to stay on top of what's happening in the world. It's a window to the world. It is also a way of, escaping or relaxing or finding entertainment.
Yeah.
Very much universal themes actually around.
It's like for me, for example, it's about keeping in touch with the latest news that is out there. What does television mean to you, Corin?
Besides that, it's also relaxation. So,
Switching off, eh? Okay. Gary, what does television mean to you?
Yeah, I was going to say escape, but also connection. And those are quite divergent because,
Yes.
you know, we're all human beings. We all have different days. Some days they're good, sometimes some days they're bad. And some days you just want to go off into another world of your television and escape, right?
Okay.
But then there are other days where the television is a centerpiece for the family to congregate and be together, make some popcorn, get comfortable,
Watching
talk about,
sport.
yeah, exactly. Talk about what's going on. I know there's some people out there that hate when other people talk when the TV's on, but in my family, it's a bit different. That's I often connect with my sons on a Friday evening. Our favorite thing to do is to find a program that they've never watched.
Yeah.
I've obviously watched quite a bit, but they like the old classics, like, you know, the Karate Kid and Back to the
Really?
Future. Oh, they go crazy for it. And I mean, they're young, but it still strikes a chord, and they know that I've seen it, and we talk about it. We'll stop the program and we'll talk about what's happening. And it's just a different way of connecting. So we're not going there
Yeah.
to escape.
Yeah.
We're going there to connect.
Yeah.
It's just, it serves many, many purposes.
And what about yourself, Serena? What does television mean to you?
I love brain dead moments.
Yes.
Sometimes after a very long week. So I think it's part of that, but it's also about exposure to different lives, different worlds.
Yeah.
And I like to understand and to see how just different people feel about things. So there's a newness to it that I think it sometimes brings in terms of what it exposes you to.
It's a visual tunnel into the world. It's amazing how all of you have got a completely different interpretation. And I guess this next video is really going to illustrate all of this. That what does and this is such an important point. But let's get a visual interpretation of this, because we've compiled a little video to illustrate what we're talking about.
A fish that's gave us a wild mind. So it's keeping informed. Identify something that's keeping informed, up to date.
That's television.
Yeah, that's television viewing for me.
On phone, when we watch news, for example, they don't give us a full story,
Oh, okay.
but on TV they does.
Okay.
So my work is a big load on me. And I used to have a partner and my partner passed away. So there was no communication anymore. So where do I run to? My TV.
Okay.
My TV was my, how can I say, my comfort zone.
There's something specific we want to watch. We'll tell the other people and we get together, make snacks and make something of it. It's not just TV. You understand? It's more like family time.
Yeah, and I wonder which category Housewives of Cape Town or Pretoria falls into. But that's another debate altogether. But listen, guys, I mean, Peter, that's so interesting when we analyze this and get different perspective. And of course, what I was watching there and how people, have their perception of news and the trust that they have for television. Can you share some of the learnings and really what has changed dramatically? Because since 2019 and high-speed internet access and YouTubes and TikToks, this world has changed dramatically, hasn't it? And, the generations that watched television in the 70s and 80s and the 90s, 2000, the 2010s, that's all shifted. It keeps changing with every generation.
Yeah, absolutely, Aki. And I think what everybody has just said about what television viewing means to them is actually very pertinent to one of the key insights of this study. And that was that we saw across the generations and over the last 2 decades, people actually have moved away from communal television viewing. Yes, it still happens, like Gary has just explained, but there's this fragmentation and shared loyalty between broadcast-led scheduled viewing and that which you determine on your own, from streaming or other platforms. So there's this movement away from the shared screen to more personal streams, which is quite interesting. And you would still find that even intergenerationally within a household, older generations still enjoy watching television, as a collective around sporting events or major political events or things that actually connect us all. And then on the other hand, some people in the household might drift off whilst other people are actually watching television to, consume content on their own.
Yes. So I would imagine that, live events like, World Cup rugby finals, for example, soccer finals, or, family hour. Family hours, when the president gave us the updates on COVID in South Africa, everybody would be watching television at the same time. And it was incredible how upset people got when there was a delay, because it was like interrupting people's schedules. But what's happening is interesting, is that everyone is now personalizing their viewing. It's almost like they are scheduling what they're going to watch, when they're going to watch it, and for how long they're going to watch it.
Yes. So people are actually, as you rightfully say, they're curating their own viewing journey. So they decide, what am I going to watch? When am I going to watch it? And on what device? Because what was very interesting from the study is if you asked people what they were watching, their memory anchor about what they were watching was very closely related to the device. So I would use my phone to watch or consume video content on social media platforms. I will use a tablet for something I need a greater visual field for to enjoy better, and so on and so forth. So people really, take charge of their viewing journeys, and they create their own viewing journeys based on the content they want to watch, given whatever emotional or psychological or functional need it is that they have to fulfill.
You know what? I love what you just said about curating your own entertainment. It's brilliant. And if you think of the notion of the mobile phone, the primary use of a mobile phone when they first came out was as a communication tool. Now it seems to be used more as a viewing tool, as a tool to consume content. So I find that quite fascinating. But we've got another short video clip to illustrate exactly what Peter was talking about how people consume it. And you just have to think about it. When people are commuting, when people have a spare moment, the phone comes out, they're catching up on something. So there's no specific time during a day that people are consuming content, as opposed to 3 decades ago when a television show came out. Here in South Africa, everybody watched television at the same time. But today, it's very different. They're curating their own content. Take a look.
It's technology. You don't need an aerial. You just need a proper internet to watch a smart TV. And then you just need to subscribe into certain streaming apps so you can enjoy TV.
And then now taking much time, longer times to watch TV.
And now with YouTube, with Showmax, with Disney, you can download movies, you can rent movies, you can watch. So it has changed a lot from what it used to be, and it's much better now compared to what it used to be.
Okay.
Because you got a wider choice, more and more of a variety.
Usually, I would fight for a TV with the kids and the mother here. So now I can even have my own space using my phone. So my viewing is exchanged, and it has improved quite a lot. Yeah.
And it also has happened before in this household. And I'm telling you, now thinking about it, that we can all watch something different. And it won't bother the other. We listen it loud. She's busy on TikTok. She's busy on YouTube. She's busy on the TV. Yes, on you. All these noises, and everybody's concentrating on their device.
Isn't it amazing how she says that everybody is watching something different? So you can have a household with 6 people all sitting in the same area in front of the TV, and everybody's watching something different. And this is fragmentation, or I don't know, what do you call it, silos of content that people are consuming. What's driving all of this? A lot of people speak about the technological advances. Somebody mentioned in that video that you don't need an aerial anymore. So that mobile device and connectivity has really shifted our patterns.
Absolutely on point. It's exactly that. I think perhaps the most fundamental driver of this change in the way people watch TV is around technology. So you have the different devices and the capability to actually even also switch from one device seamlessly to continue watching a show on a different device. And even in rural areas, we saw that people are connected, even though there might not be other indications of a more wealthy household. People were connected. Yes, in South Africa, data is still relatively expensive compared to elsewhere, but with a cheapening of prices in data, we also see that people now have readily access to to watch content, and that's all being made possible by technology.
Absolutely, and the speed as well. You know,
Yes.
we speak about 5G, and I think that access to free Wi-Fi. I talk to a lot of my colleagues, and they go into an office space where there is free Wi-Fi. They download the content and they consume it later, where they're commuting or whatever they might be doing. And I think cherished content also holds a lot of emotional sway in South Africa, especially when you look at the viewing habits. And of course, when you look at the power interruptions that we have, because you mentioned that earlier, we have our own challenges over here, whether it's electricity outages, whether there's slow internet speeds. The one thing that people don't even negotiate on, and I remember when we had load shedding in South Africa and people had these inverters, the first thing that would be getting power would be the television and the internet connectivity. Above all else, you can't not have the TV on when there's load shedding. And I think that emotional attachment to viewing is really prevalent in South Africa. And I'm sure it's quite different to other countries.
Well, in South Africa, what happens is we could see very clearly that content is really important to people. So it's whether it's a way of escaping, whether it is entertainment or staying up to date with current events, content is extremely important, because in the research we saw that some of the viewers of long-standing South African what shall I call it, programs,
Yes.
actually left or stopped watching the program simply because it became too violent, or or the content became irrelevant. So it's going to be really important for people to keep a close eye on what is the kind of content that they generate, because we are moving to these personal streams, because we don't have a remote any longer, because there's less communal viewing. People are not that loyal anymore. So you really need to make a concerted effort into ensuring that content remains relevant. And then, as you also rightfully say, there's a lot of interruptions typically to viewing cherished content, but people are very clever. Because of technology as well, you can charge your laptop, ahead of time. So you download something, when it's load shedding, you watch it on a laptop. Or people are actually very socially connected as well and committed to watching that show. So they will phone up a friend that lives elsewhere where there's still electricity, and they'll go visit, or they'll go find a public Wi-Fi spot. But they're very, very creative around finding ways to circumvent the challenges that load shedding presents in terms of consuming content that they would really like to consume.
Wow, I don't know about you guys, but I just find this discussion absolutely fascinating. And what it's showing me, and what I'm, just gathering from the information that's been shared, is that television is more important than it's ever been. I see it as back in our ancestor days, we used to have a fireplace and we used to sit around the fireplace and talk. Could the television still be that modern day fireplace where we share stories, we share visions, we share our hopes and aspirations, we educate ourselves by listening to others' stories? So maybe that's what television is, and that it holds such an important place in the households as that we've demonstrated here today. But it's not just about the television. It's how we're consuming it, whether it's on a mobile phone, on a tablet, etc., etc. Gary, what stands out for you listening to all of this conversation, which I am finding absolutely fascinating?
Yeah, it really is fascinating. I think the thing to remember here is, in terms of the television broadcasters, all the channels in South Africa that we measure, they've missed out on these nuances. They've missed out on the people viewing on their phone, on their tablet, in terms of those ratings, in terms of audience ratings,
Yes,
in terms of platforms that provide streaming content. Yes, television, video, it's being viewed in a different way. The audience for video is definitely growing, and we're capturing the how, but we've missed out on those numbers. And I think righting that wrong, I'm very excited about that. And I believe the broadcasters should be excited about that, as well as the agencies and the advertisers, because return on investment is going to be bigger than it ever has. It's going to be a new normal, yes. There's going to be a settling in phase, yes. We're human beings. No one really likes change, but when it's change that's needed for the greater good, for the entire industry, we can all hang our hats proudly that we're all on this journey together, and we were here now in this time doing this.
Mm. Are you expecting to see any big shifts in the research, things that you're not expecting? Or do you know more or less what we're going to expect after this research has been conducted?
I will be very disappointed if there's no surprises. I think it will be important that there's surprises, but I think it's going to be vital to be able to explain the surprises. And that you can only do if you can really trust your data sets. And I think the beauty of this piece of work is the qualitative nuances, the videos, the photos, etc., because it brings a very, very different dimension to the research. But yes, I'm really hoping for surprises, but surprises that can be very well explained.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, this data is going to benefit broadcasters and advertisers. Care to touch on that? Because I think what you're saying, what I'm hearing from you, is that there are going to be surprises. How is this going to benefit broadcasters and advertisers?
I think the impact is going to be very, very wide and very broad, depending on how open people are to listen, to hear, and to understand that there's actually significant relevance to their industry, regardless of where that might be. Because I think even if we think telecommunications, we've spoken so much about connectivity, Wi-Fi, etc. I think for the telecommunications guys, there's a hell of a lot of insights. And I think for the advertisers and for the media owners to be able to say, we've invested in a very significant, very powerful piece of research, that will enable us to make very informed decisions that's really to the betterment of our clients, our end clients, consumers, our industry. So I really think it's a big game changer for the industry, but probably much broader than what we anticipate.
Yeah. And Gary, from a BRC point of view, do you anticipate, I mean, I guess you will always tweak the system going forward, but there's not going to be these massive jolts that we've seen prior to 2019, where you've got all these social media platforms. In fact, I dare say, and I'm not an expert, is that we'll probably see a plateau of how things are researched going forward, because you're not anticipating massive changes in the next decade in terms of viewing, right?
I suppose there may be those changes. However, our intent is to change as the market changes, gather data continually and more frequently so that there isn't a hiatus of data and we're not seeing this massive gap and then, surprise, here are the big changes. So there'll be changes over time, but we'll be tracking as we go. So those changes will be incorporated as we go, and they'll be incremental, rather than there being 6 or 7 years without any kind of data and then surprises or perceived surprises.
Yeah. Corin, what excites you the most about all of this? Where do you see it in 5 years? Are we going to make little tweaks here and there? Are you expecting any big changes?
I think 5 years is a short period of time, but many things can happen. We all saw TikTok coming about in a very short period of time, but it is not a massive change in the sense of that it has to change, the measurement needs to change. I think that's, I think we're set for the future.
Yes.
In South Africa with a new measurement system.
But Peter, what's exciting you the most about all of this?
For me, what was really a standout moment in this entire roadmap so far was the value that the qualitative research had brought to the rigor of the measurement that's employed in the establishment survey. It is, in hindsight, absolutely impossible to have developed what we've developed if we hadn't gone into the field, really understanding people in their natural environments, understanding how they think about their world, and we can judge the value of this research by means of the insight that we derived from it. So, and I think that has made a significant contribution to the establishment survey as a whole.
No, absolutely. Well, I've really enjoyed this webinar because it really is going to bring profound changes to everyone that's in these industries, whether you're a marketer, an advertiser, a broadcaster. And it's really important to understand what it means and how it's going to impact your particular segment of the market. And I think that once this research comes out, it's going to show us how viewing behavior in South Africa has fundamentally changed. And over the next 2 years, what we've been learning today is that the BRC is going to be leading this structured, collaborative transition towards total video measurement. And I think that's such an important, crucial word in understanding where this is all going, grounded in a robust and a fit for purpose establishment survey rather, that really understands what's happening out there in the market and how these consumers are consuming content. And this is just the start of the journey. This is not the end point. This has got a lot more legs, as you heard the panel talking about, and it marks the first milestone in a much longer journey that's going to be tweaked along the way, that's going to offer even more insights along the way, and a much needed change that's needed in this industry, with all the data releases and the insights and the ongoing dialogue and the curiosity that it's going to spark in our industry, and the insights that is going to provide in our insight is going to be quite remarkable. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of this journey. And if you do have any questions that you want to ask, any comments that you want to make, you can do so now on your screen, but you can also email us at office@brcsa.org.za, and Gary and his team will answer any questions that you might have. I'm certainly looking forward to this research when it comes out. And by the sounds of it, from the entire panel, there are going to be surprises. So big thanks to Gary Whittaker, who is the CEO of the Broadcast Research Council of South Africa, Serena Howie, who is the Director of Global Products at Ask Africa, Karen Schutt, who's joined us all the way from the Netherlands, who's the media research expert and project lead at the BRC Establishment Survey, as well as Peter Rousseau, who's the senior researcher at Ask Africa. The hard work starts now, and we can't wait to tell you all about those results in the near future. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Enjoy your day further.